Tales from a Seven-City Empire. The Book of Gimmel. Volume 1. Welcome. These tales of horror are brought to you by Jackie Gardis Productions. Put more magic into your life. Thank you, and welcome to the world of the Seven-City Empire. I must warn you. These stories are more than just stories, they are a doorway into another realm, a world that is locked deep within the darker side of your imagination. If you find that your surroundings are changing, that is, the spirits of these tales have awakened, and they are becoming more familiar with your environment, then you may want to consider stopping, calling a friend, and quickly inviting them over to share these stories, because one thing is for sure, you may not want to find yourself alone. Doors will open. Welcome to Tales from a Seven-City Empire. Beware, we have warned you. Now, on to our tales.
The sixth. Cometh Dark Projects.
Royal Research Record A667A29. Rio Gaia City Tier 3. Outskirts. Multiteric Shield Inducer Test. Journal of Dr. Nola and Jackie Rapier. Lead Red D Project Scientists. Department of Royal Esoteric Defense Force, Angel Cove Division. Dark Projects Unit, Red D. Timestamp, CKT, 7:53 RGTT, Rio Gaia, Twilight Time. 30 minutes before the fall of the sun. Funny how fear can be a strong mediator of the will, but it isn't the only thing that drives humanity to survive in the darkness. Sometimes we forget that we have more, something greater than the darkness, or as the ancient tribes of Tefrith had called it, faith. Okay. The shield inducers are almost charged, says a voice from behind, my wife. She has always been one for preparation, but this time, the tension brings a new feeling to us both. Our group has been working on this project for years, and now we are at its completion, that is, if we can get it to work. For considering the danger, we better make sure that we know what the hell we are doing. Being caught in the graveyard can be deadly, but we were treading our luck extra thin these days. Traveling at night was insanity at its best, and sure enough, we were insane. So we decided to stick to an area just outside of the imperial cities, a line in the sand before you reached the deeper parts of the graveyard. This thin strip of land, the boundaries, officially named by the Empire, still held residual energy from the cities. It was not a guaranteed death, if you were fast enough. People would be warned to stay clear of these places, and you would listen if you were smart. Sometimes the local teams in the third tier will play deadly games during the day, betting who will stay the longest out in the boundaries. A test of courage, or stupidity, either way. If you were arrested, no mercy, straight into an imperial holding cell to await trial. Looters and second-hand merchants looking for treasures will frequently rummage through these dangerous areas, searching for abandoned towns and neighborhoods left over from the migration wars. Before the wars, our 7 cities consisted of only 2 tiers. The first being held by the royals of our imperium, calling themselves the Golden Circle. It was they who delegated authority in the name of our queen. From the center of each city, they, as well as Her Majesty, occupies one of the 7 pyramid palaces, its form towering above one of each of the 7 unity gates. As for the second tier, it was mainly controlled by the Sirs, those who carried out the orders of their masters in the Golden Circle. It was they, and those disenfranchised pioneers, the poor of the Empire, that became the backbone of our kingdom. It was also they, who became consumed by that awful conflict, as factions fought over land, power, and resources. But eventually, the war came to an end. The tribe of Tefrith had sacrificed themselves, helping to extend the esoteric shields with their magic, creating what is now known as the third tier, or for most, the imperial ghettos. It is here that the poor reside, an area where the night brings evil. For here, after sunfall, the city's shields are not strong enough to stop the horrors of hell brought forth by the Veiled Forest, a reminder of what we lost when our realm was invaded by the Dark Lords, over 10,000 years ago. From our struggle, came the holy campaigns that freed humanity, but at a great cost. The doorway to the abyss, the Nightmare's Gate, still remained opened, and the forest marked its peripheries. Our 7 cities became a haven, but without considering the consequences, we expanded and eventually brought fear and death, teaching us the plight of our limitations. It's rough for those in the third tier, but survival is possible after the sun falls. Best to be in the light, than the dark when the demons come for you. In this case, with our experiment, we plan on driving to one of the nearby towns in the boundaries. Those back at the Red D Research Complex considered this a suicide mission, and no one was going to spend even a second out there with us. In the end, my wife and I had decided to put our faith into this technology, since no one else was willing to do so. 2 weeks later, here we are on the outskirts, parked at the boundary markers of Tier 3 in Rio Gaia, waiting to drive into the oblivion. Foolish was our endeavor. We knew that we had only a short time to spend out there. The plan was to make this swift. The drain on our transport would be immense, but we would still be close enough to the city if something went wrong. To make sure that our experiment would be a success, we had decided to go to a place that would confirm its validity to our superiors. Our fellow peers in the scientific circles deemed us mental cases when they heard where we would be conducting our trials for the new multiteric shields. I guess my wife and I had to put a call into the divine, and pray that we would come back, because we both knew we were going to have to put our lives on the line to prove that this technology would work to keep other people safe. The citizens in the outskirts were at the mercy to the darkness, but eventually the whole empire would feel the problem. Research from our tests confirmed that holes, or weak points in the divine shields were manifesting in all 7 of the imperial cities. They would seem to appear at random intervals and would either stay, attaching themselves to the location for weeks, even months, or in some cases they would quickly jump out of the outskirts, entering into other parts of the 3rd tier. The problem was that they would never stay rooted for too long, moving on to some other section to wreak havoc elsewhere. The danger came like a silent thief in the night, taking its delight in torture and pain, and the truth remained a secret to everyone. The public didn't know that the divine shields were slowly breaking down, and the deaths were being kept a secret by their Adef, under a royal decree from our queen directly. She too had her eyes set on this mission, for we dare not fail. For in the Unity Gates lay a deeper truth. Not only did they connect our empire, making possible distant travel from one city to the next, but they also provided our security by creating what we call an esoteric, or divine shield, or as the tribe of Tefrith had claimed, the aura of divinity. If our protection should crumble, then it would allow our 7-city empire to be overrun by a demonic invasion of festering darkness. We would be consumed by the veiled forest, and its conquest as it has with all parts of our realm. The forest grows everywhere except for the 7 cities. For in the 7 cities, mankind is safe from the veiled forest, for it is the doorway that designates the entry points into the lower realms of hell. It dominates all. But tonight, we will give our people a chance to survive, or at least die trying. Honey, we are ready, the generators are fully charged, says my wife as she looks at me, smiling. Now, are we good to go? I turn, raising my hand to hold her hair, lovely as the last rays of sunlight before the coming of the twilight, and then soon into darkness, and the graveyard. I have always loved her, and I will always continue to love her as I do now, as we will face the unknown together. We both close our eyes, and as the last beams of light fade, the computers within our mini-transport shift their programming into night mode, scanning the neighborhood, and then onto the boundaries ahead, or as the locals in Rio Gaia call this particular location, the Devil's Sanitarium. This region is one of the largest in the boundaries, and for the most part, is unexplored. It boasts having some of the highest death rates as well as sightings by witnesses. There is no protection, and we, so lucky, have positioned ourselves to be the first to explore it, or so we thought. May the divine bless our path, I say, holding my wife's hand, our hearts beating heavily. From outside, we could see people rushing towards shelter, as the horns of the night gavel howl in the distance. We shiver slightly, feeling the first cold of evil. For it comes again, the deadly dance calling forth the nesting of demons onto the horizon, as the 3rd tiers of Rio Gaia prepare for a long night, another introduction. 2. Death. Timestamp, CKT 853 RGNT, Rio Gaia, nighttime. Strange how the world appears when it is in the dark. For blocks, the streets and corners were deserted, silent with the absence of light as we rolled closer to the edge of the city. Here, we would see the true nature of these holes in the divine shield. It took my wife and I some dealing with to get used to the sheer darkness to be seen in the outskirts. In the first and second tiers, such occurrences were non-existent, for the divine light of the Unity Gate covered the sky like a warm blanket, casting a delicate glow to every corner. Nighttime was never truly night for us. We were protected, but not from the eyes of the poor. For the third tier was adrift in the shadows of its own sins, and we know better, as the royals turned their noses, and the sirs followed with pursuit, pleasing their masters. But the word was written, and our path was laid true. Their problem now became ours, as these holes would soon besiege every city in the empire. The royals had decided to fight the problem when casualties were low, or better yet, when casualties were still in the ghettos. It was up to our research to somehow reduce, or slow down the spread of the Reaper zones. At first, we tried to ground them to a single point, allowing us to safely control the zones better. In the end, they proved too powerful to bring under our command. That's when we, my wife and I, decided to pursue the idea of multi-teric shields, hoping to bring our empire back from the brink of possible destruction. Many are speculating the coming of a second migration war, for the Reaper zones make our esoteric shields useless, causing parts of our cities to become uninhabitable. If the citizens could not protect themselves, then we would find ourselves battling against each other, and that forest as well. The multi-teric shields became more than just a new way of helping to protect the third tier, but also to help maintain the empire's cohesion. Everyone knew how important the research was, but no one seemed stupid enough to put faith into it as we did. Sitting there in our transport, we continued to move forward, rolling past the warning markers, leaving the city limits of Rio Gaia, their red lights flashing in the night indicating we had just entered the danger. Immediately, we activate the shields, and start the countdown on the power supply. Slowly, we moved into the darkness of the unprotected night, and the journey that lay before us. Sounds, spiritual energy, and the darkness all danced within the macabre, as fear stirred in the air. We both could feel it. Our instruments constantly scanning, locating several different anomalies. These entities we know by many names depending on their classification. Some less dangerous than others, but still to be dealt with in caution, if not at all. "Well, do you see anything?" Jackie quietly says, her hand steady on the steering wheel. "Well, do you?" When we were children, she had decided to make racing cars her special mission in life, but I guess, I came into her world, and changed that. Racing was always her first love, but science in the esoteric field became her second, and a marriage was born. I love her strength, but I knew that she could feel the tension of evil, and we its victims, surrounded. On the monitors, we had trekked about 2 miles into the boundaries. It was hard to think about what existed outside in that dense fog, a byproduct of the graveyards, which themselves expanded out to about 6 to 8 miles, depending on the city. Many had speculated that the immense fog covering was due to the interaction of the forest, and the power behind the Unity Gates. It seemed to be a buffer between evil and good, or better yet, to conceal the evil that lays within its misty borders. "We are almost at our turnaround point," says Jackie, checking her instruments. As the mist begins to diminish, we find ourselves on a street surrounded by houses, a whole neighborhood appearing before us as if it had been there from the start. We stare in disbelief, not knowing what to comprehend, but one thing was for sure. "Nola, did you hear me?" she repeats. "We lost." With finger over closed lips, hushing her, I say in a calm tone, "I think we may have a presence with us." We both turn to look out of the window to see a small child standing before our transport, a blank look on her face, no emotion. She stares at us, gazing as we look back in curiosity, slowly raising her hand, beckoning us to come outside, but we know better. The darkness is aware that we are here, and it wants to know why. Again, the child beckons us as she begins to move closer. We remain still, waiting for the entity to make contact with the shield, but suddenly it stops. Then, with a gleam in her eye, she smiles and says, "We see you. We hear you, and we know that you are here. We know that you are here. We know that you are here." The words resound outside in hollow dark places. Voices speaking back, adding to the little girl as she continues in an almost hypnotic tone. My wife and I are so mesmerized by the incident, that we almost forget to record the data. With haste, Jackie dashes to the back, sitting at one of the command stations. "Damn, I had almost missed it." She responds, her hands frantically moving, trying to gather mystic information to be studied for later. For a moment, I take my eyes off of the little girl as she stands there, the smile on her face frozen, her pupils consumed with black. Moving next to Jackie, I tap my wife on the shoulder, asking what she has found. She turns to me, and says, "I don't know, we will have to analyze it when we get back, but so far, it looks like nothing more but an apparition." But that isn't what gets her attention as she turns to face me, her mouth falling open as she points back towards the front window. "We have all now come to see you." Our eyes look to witness the little girl and several other children outside, pointing at the transport. Wide grins with sharp teeth cover their facades, eyes dark, chanting our names. The darkness knows us, and it has been waiting. We were not prepared for this. "Are the shields holding?" I ask her, sitting at one of the adjacent computer terminals. My hands almost shaking as I try to input the data. "Don't look at them." They keep looking at me. "What do you expect me to do?" Jackie says in a demanding tone. "Ignore them, look at them, that's an evil I can't ignore." Then as swiftly as they came, they vanish, the mist covering their departure. "They're gone," I say, both of us still troubled by the nature of our predicament. "So what do you think, my love?" "I think we need to find out where we are," she says, her eyes moving back and forth between the front window and her computer screen. "We need to get back to the city and fast. If these readings are correct, then this is more than just a sign of trouble." Words bring silence as Jackie turns to me, pointing to our location on her monitor. She then says, her voice firm, "We are off course." How, in Hades, did that happen? I don't understand. How could we be off course? "This is not good," I answer, as we both begin to bring up the recent data after leaving the city limits. Then, we see it, the problem, blind to us at first, but a faint whisper still caught. We had discovered our dilemma, but we didn't know what it was, or what it did to us. All that we had was an energy signature, and nothing more. I will need to filter this through a deeper scan. Until then, it is still a mystery, Jackie says. And more importantly, we are still lost. We need an incantation to get us back to the city, something like a rudimentary compass. You can use the divine energy of Ryogaia's Unity Gate as a directional guide. With some luck, we won't be too far off. "Good idea, my darling," I answer as I begin to meditate, preparing to manifest an orb of Navian. I recite the spell, and with ease, the mirrored sphere appears before me, dropping into my hands. As I come to the end of my casting, it happens, warning lights everywhere. We check the monitors in the cabin, and stare in disbelief at the updated information, our screens showing increased activity outside. Jackie turns to me, and says in a serious tone, "We need to really get out of here. If your spell is ready, then let's head towards the direction of the city, now, and fast." I raise the sphere with a slight gliding of my fingertips, and let go. Silently hovering before us, it speaks. "State your request, my lord." "Navian, We need to locate the direction and distance of the nearest Unity Gate, or better, how do we get back to Rio Gaia? My request is understood, calculated, and answered, but with words not expected. You are currently not linked to the Central 7 Imperial Network. Hold please. State your suggestions. Lock onto the city by distant radius location using a compass beacon, I say to the sphere, my wife checking the power supply of the shields. Once more, in flashes of light, the device calculates, uploading the new data to the computer system. Then, as I place the sphere in a secure spot, I hear Jackie say, "We are only seeing the start of this. But for safety purposes, we might want to be mobile. Moving from one section to the next will make it harder for them to find us, and easier for us to possibly find our way back home to safety. But one thing is for sure, the new shields are getting a run for their money." "You're right about that, my love," I answer. "The coordinates are set. We are ready, so let's get the hell out of here before something else happens." They know we are here, and they can feel our presence, and most of all, I can feel them. We are both members of the Golden Circle, and the magic that we possess will call to them. "So my wife, we need to leave now, if not immediately." "I agree," Jackie says as we walk back to the front of the transport, preparing to depart. With her intent eye, my wife looks over the controls in the operator's seat, an expert at what she does. "All right, let's see those new coordinates that the Orb of Navian uploaded." But she doesn't finish her sentence, only silence. I tap her on the shoulder, waiting for a response, but nothing. I then say, "Jackie, what is it? What's wrong?" Gradually, she turns with disbelief upon her face, and says, "Oh my divine. We are 5 miles from Rio Gaia. Damn it, Nola, did you hear me? We aren't in the boundaries anymore." "Not in the boundaries?" "No. We are in the graveyard." Instantly, a sudden chill moves over my skin, for I know the danger. The graveyard was the last place that we had expected to be. The boundaries gave us at least some moderate protection. There were still small amounts of divine energy fluctuating at the city's edge, but out here, where we were, no one was safe. On our own, we found ourselves considering what limited options lay before us, with nothing but the batteries and the energy that they had collected before leaving the city. We were now going to see how strong the multiteric shields truly were, and how well they absorbed the divine energy of the gates, and if so, how well would they retain it out here in the wastelands of the graveyard. We essentially had created a small replicated version of the Unity gates, but ours didn't have a self-creating source of energy, nor was it built by the divine. We both look at each other, knowing what we need to do next, as my wife says. We should look at the energy reserves of the batteries. Immediately, she checks one of the monitors next to her. After pressing several buttons, she turns back to me with a sigh of relief. "Our levels are still charged," she says, activating the transport drive unit. "But they are starting to drop a bit. We need to quickly get back to Rio Gaia before the graveyard drains our power." This close to the veiled forest makes me nervous. As the mist moves outside, there comes a break in its thick cloud, allowing us to glimpse faint signs of trees in the distance. We knew what lay before our eyes, just hidden out of sight, beyond the mist of the graveyard. We knew it was time to leave as howling echoes and sounds not heard for thousands of years begin to surround us. The veiled forest was making an introduction to its prey. "Let's go," I say, attempting to remain calm, as I gently grab her hand. Slowly, Jackie takes the controls, and we begin our journey into a world which no one in the kingdom has ever dared to explore. Travelers, in an unholy land. May the divine have mercy on our souls. Timestamp, CKT 953 RGTTG. Rio Gaia, Twilight Gavel Time. Location: the graveyard. 0.5 miles from the boundaries. As we continued traveling, we made our way through several deserted neighborhoods left abandoned from the days of the migration wars. Many lives were claimed in these areas, that is, until people realized that they couldn't fight the evil that lay hidden in the graveyard. Even those desperate citizens who attempted colonization in the boundaries, closer to the city, were no better. Over empty streets, passing the derelicts of abandoned homes, our transport gradually moves closer to Rio Gaia. Looking about, from all around, our eyes could see that the mist was alive with the movement of shadows, lower entities waiting to feast. "This is not good," Jackie says. "My scans are detecting something that is outside, but yet, it's not there. I can't tell you anymore. This doesn't feel right, my psychic eye is blind," I respond, our eyes staring into the mist, knowing that it invites some new evil. I feel that a darker mind is masking itself from our mental probes. I feel it too, but remember, let's not get too distracted, my wife says, pulling back on the controls of the transport to turn onto another road, only to turn back down the same street. We sit there, distraught by the occurrence, as Jackie tries to back away, turning the corner once more to find our location starting again at the same. "Well, this is a pickle," I say, turning to her. "Seems we are being forced to make a decision." "Yes, it would seem so," answers Jackie. "But will it be the correct choice, since we are given no choice but to take its invitation?" With silent gesture and confidence, my wife gracefully directs the transport forward, her hands slightly shaking. I touch them, hoping to calm her. Gradually, our visibility becomes no better than a blind man lost in a dark room, as we track the coordinates of the beacon leading us back to the city. "I am placing the forward scanners at maximum," I say, activating more sensory equipment. "Seems that our shields are holding quite well, but we haven't really ran into anything dangerous, and power consumption is at a minimal. We are doing good, considering the danger that is outside." "Speak for yourself," responds Jackie, as she continues to drive the transport. Then, with a strange calmness that seems to overwhelm our very nature, a whisper is heard, but not from our ears. "What was that?" I immediately feel the need to raise the power of the shields, as a sudden thump hits the transport, lightly moving us to the side. We stop. We remain silent, and then we look to our instruments for an answer, but nothing. "What the hell was that?" Jackie says as she recalibrates the scans. "The defense systems are telling me that something just hit us like a bullet, but nothing is there." "I would assume that something was trying to invade our transport," I answer, looking at my instrument panel. "But the shields gave them resistance. What is our power level at now?" Glancing over at her monitor, Jackie stares with puzzlement. She then says, "This is not good, our supply has been drained to 60%. Damn it, you know what happens to that shield if we go under 30%? It goes bye, and so do we." "Yes," I say, looking at my wife. "And worse yet, as the transport loses power, so will the shield, and that means, their interest in our life energy will increase. More will know that food is in the neighborhood. We will be the main course," Jackie says. "And they are hungry little devils, aren't they?" With unsurmountable odds, and no options, we sit back in our chairs, thinking over our predicament, only to be knocked out of them again, as the transport is picked up in midair, and then tossed across the street, hitting a lamp post. The attack repeats viciously, until we are suddenly pushed from the street, out of the mist, to an adjacent housing complex. With the commotion now at rest, we both slowly stand to witness several entities in the cloudy borders reaching out towards us, their existence trapped. I turn to look at my wife as she stands from the floor, quickly getting into the driver console to move the transport away. With haste, we find ourselves in another section, rapidly heading towards the beacon that is Rio Gaia. Dazed and bewildered, we proceed forward, trying to get our bearings, as we gradually creep closer. Wiping the sweat from her brow, Jackie glances over at me, and says, "So I guess this will reinforce our belief that these shields can hold their own through some pretty rough conditions. If the power from the Unity gates stretched out this far, then we would be able to stay out here indefinitely." Slowly, a smile forms on both of our faces as the excitement of our discovery overruns our fear for a brief moment. We had succeeded in the mission, the shields had worked, and if not for that attack, we may have never been able to collect this type of evidence. We hugged each other, embracing in a kiss as husband and wife, but for lack of a better phrase, we weren't out of the woods yet. We still had some ways to travel back to Rio Gaia, but instead of scientific formulas and mundane material to muddle over, we would be returning with something better, our salvation. Now this is a celebration. I yell out, still holding on to her. But we need to get the information back to Red Command. The shield works, we can save our kingdom, but if we die out here, all of this will be for naught. We will be nothing more but those crazy scientists who were stupid enough to come out here, and die. Quickly, we get back to our seats, only to realize something else as Jackie looks over, and says, "If we die out here, we will not only dishonor ourselves, but our royal house as well, considering that the Queen is directly involved in this project. We can't let them suffer for our mistakes. We can't." She is correct. My eyes become frozen upon her words as we make gesture and prayers to the divine for protection. The situation has gone from curiosity and amazement, to deep fear and concern. Above all, dishonor is not tolerated in the Golden Circle and would not bring a favorable outcome, if not hidden with deadlier repercussions. With caution and trepidation, we check the shield output searching for damages. To our luck, none were found. Slowly, we begin to move the transport forward along the main street, arriving at the end where it divides, two streets going in the opposite direction. We turn carefully to our right, following the course laid out by the Navian sphere. The mystery of our location and the nature of how we came to be here, still gave us concern. We both look at each other, our eyes watching the power meter, tension increasing with each lost point. Then, it happens, we stop to witness something on our monitors. The magic of the field seemed to condense and stretch like a muscle, showing the dynamic nature of the environment. These bubbles of consciousness were attracted to the city because of the divine energy from the Unity gates, but as we saw the fields form, and move towards the same direction that was leading both of us to the city, they seemed to leave extra material in their paths as if dumping items out of a car. This is what teleported us from the boundaries to the graveyard, I say as we both look at the monitors, the data telling us in plain view. It would seem that the hypothesis of the graveyard spawning life, or better yet, remnants of magical energy with low-level patterns of consciousness is true, and it seems that these patterns of consciousness are alive, that is partially. Looks like they are drawn to the divine energy for food, and there is an added twist to their existence, they seem to translocate anything in their path. Probably, all the way back to their creation point, says Jackie, reviewing the information. We are lucky. We could have ended up closer to the forest. They seem to move in a straight line towards the city, and anything that gets in their way, is teleported anywhere behind them, along that path. That would mean that ours started somewhere in the graveyard and traveled into the boundaries, hit our transport, and then took us to some random point along its line of progression. Now, that's incredible, and dangerous. That means these teleportation bubbles can be floating anywhere out here, even heading towards us. If we get hit by one of those things again, we won't have enough energy to make it back. The magnitude of our discovery, as well as the impeding danger, forces us to recalibrate the computer, hoping to detect the phantom bubbles. With fear as a companion, we finish quickly as Jackie positions herself in the driver's seat, gripping the controls. She then says, "Time to get the hell out of here." Then, without warning, an alarm sounds. I immediately bring up the alert on the control panel next to me, only to find our worst nightmare now becoming true. I turn to Jackie as she starts to move the transport forward, her eyes looking ahead. I then say to her, "We need to leave now." But before I can finish, our attention is directed towards the front window. From the sight, we stand in awe, a witness to a cloud of darkness materializing outside before our very sight. We casually observe the scanners, waiting for something to happen, hoping that this incident will go away, except it doesn't. Immediately, the shadow cloud starts to pull in debris from around the area. The shift in events causes the transport to buckle as it moves back and forth from the immense wind being generated outside. "What the hell is that thing?" yells Jackie. Then, in a burst of energy, we are instantly pushed away. We quickly get back into our seats, assessing the danger, only to be greeted by a monster. The field of energy had spawned something hideous before us. A creature of pure blackness, void of any light. Sprouting tentacles, it would then infect its victim, forcing it to become a part of itself. It was evident that this great leviathan wanted to devour its prey. For fear was not the word to describe the hollow emptiness that we felt within the pit of our bellies, our souls captivated. "It's consuming everything," I say, monitoring the progress. It appears to be a mass of dark consciousness, concentrated, and evil. "And now, it has us in its sights," Jackie says as we notice the creature creeping nearer, destroying everything within its path. It sees our energy as food, and probably hopes to punch through the shield. "Then, let's not wait to find out," I say, as Jackie grabs the drive controls, dislodging us from the debris. With speed, my wife puts our vehicle into reverse, crashing through a house. The entity with haste follows us, its tentacles grabbing everything, turning all into death. We were now racing back to the city for our lives with a demon on us, chasing in hot pursuit. "I think I know what is going on," I respond, as the transport moves from side to side, speeding down several streets. "When we came in here, I think it was the divine energy from the shields that called out to that bubble that hit us. This shield is like a beacon calling to them, like the energy coming from Rio Gaia. The irony of our experiment to test the shields in the boundaries inevitably put our lives in danger, but we had the answer." I turn to look at my wife as she glares down the many roads, wildly turning corners, trying to stay ahead of the creature. Through the mist, behind us close, the dark cloud moves like oil, taking shape, assuming the facade of its many victims as they reach out towards us. Their hunger for spiritual energy is seen on their brow as they continually chomp down on their teeth, hoping to get a taste. Their shadowy corpses, stretching out for our transport while they crawl and walk in disjointed movements, jerking, spinning and phasing out of existence and back. We knew they were trying to get ahead, and surround us. "The hell you are, no Alamo here," yells Jackie as she veers down a side street, following the beacon, the dark figures in pursuit as we crossed over into the boundaries. In relief, before us, we could see the lights of the city in the moving mist, only to reveal a legion of entities blocking the way, their arms extended into the air, calling us to come closer. "We are too near the finish line to just give up like this," Jackie says as she increases speed. "I have an idea." With nothing to lose, the transport races ahead, the demon cloud pursuing. With hands tight upon the controls, Jackie moves us back and forth across the road. She then says, "On my mark, push all power into the shields, and I do mean everything." "Making it more solid won't help," I answer. We won't have anything to keep the engine going. Just do it. She yells back, and without haste, I proceed. As the power fades, Jackie struggles to regain control as driving becomes more difficult. Then, with a sharp twist of the steering wheel, she flips the transport, causing us to suddenly roll as if a bowling ball moving at high speed. Outside, the shields become like ice upon the ground, our momentum increasing, catching the entities off guard as they hit the shield, their forms vanishing into smoke. With nothing to slow us, our transport wildly breaks through several warning markers surrounding Rio Gaia. The force of the blow causes us to be hurled into the air, finally stopping after striking a large tree. Slowly, we regain our wits, exiting through the side emergency hatch. We soon discover that we had landed upside down in the middle of a neighborhood, as people rush out of their homes to witness our victory of staying alive. That air smells good, I say as the sound of the morning gavel rings out in the distance, signaling the end of the night. It doesn't take long for a rescue team to arrive, as the Red F is seen overhead with several hovering units, landing before us. In the midst of our jubilation, I find myself still looking back into the boundaries, my eyes almost seeing movement in the mist as sunlight washes over the area, causing any signs of what I may have seen to vanish, but I know. I saw something watching us. It had great hate because we had survived. I turn to my wife and smile, but not too much. We had won this battle with the darkness for our kingdom, but it will take many more, for the true victory of humanity is yet to await our arrival on the horizon, and we have only begun. N. Royal Research Record A667A29. Journal of Dr. Nola and Jackie Rapier. Lead Red D Project Scientists. Red Command, Dark Projects Unit.
So, concludes our journey into the 7 cities. But try and never forget that the night is always waiting. Doors will open.